welcome to She Can, the podcast, where the goal is for you to leave each episode feeling empowered to go after what you want, knowing that if she can, so can you. And today I am so excited about this because we are joined by Amy Todd, also known as Amy Learns to Save. Hi, Amy.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. So for those of you who have not followed Amy's journey, I have known you for years actually, but started really following you on social media when you started your getting out of debt journey. You announced to the world that you were £15,000 in debt and that you had a goal to get out of it. And now you're at the other side.
Yeah, what a 180, like what a whirlwind 2 years. There's no way I could have predicted what's happened over the last 2 years.
Your life has absolutely turned around.
Yeah.
So there are so many people listening to this right now who are thinking, how did she do that? How has that gone from that stress and that angst and that worry of being in that amount of debt as a successful person to completely turning that around? So take me back to when you decided enough was enough. Was there a moment?
Yeah, no, clear as day, I can totally remember. And the funny thing is, I was in such a headspace that I didn't even think there was much wrong with being in debt at first. I was totally oh, I've got control of this. I'm not paying interest on my debt. Everyone's got debt. I was constantly telling myself things like that. And then it wasn't until it got to 50, I was between 4 different credit cards, I was counting up how much the total was. And when I saw that was over £15,000, I was ill. I thought, how have I let this get this bad? And the biggest worry for me at that point was that mortgages were going up in price, interest rates. I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, what if it gets that bad that my credit score goes down, I can't remortgage, what if we lost it? I was totally catastrophizing, and I was like, I have to do something now. I've got to a point, and I couldn't sleep. And I went on Amazon and I was looking for a personal finance book, and loads of them were aimed at American audiences.
Yeah, talking about 401ks.
Yeah,
and all that kind of
and I was obviously need something UK based, and I came across this book, How to Fund the Life You Want, and it was UK based. It was about savings, investments, pensions, which in my head was oh, well, I'll skip that part, but hopefully it will teach me something that I can take away. And it did. It totally changed everything. From reading that one book, I didn't learn everything from that one book, but it was a total catalyst for me to change everything from what I did learn.
Yeah. So you're in that moment where you decide that's enough. Enough is enough. You wake up one night, you can't sleep, you order the book. Tell me a little bit about before that. How did you get yourself in that situation? Because you had a successful job, you're a careers advisor, you were making good money, you're in a family, you have a partner. How did that happen?
How did it even get to that point?
How did it happen?
Yeah. Because exactly that, way that I was looking at myself, I was thinking, I'm not daft, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I went to uni, got a teaching degree, I'm a careers advisor, and I was trying to assess that because it wasn't actually ever the big things. Yeah. So probably it would be assumed that, I was going on big holidays, big expensive holidays I couldn't afford. But actually, I feel that we're very good at planning things like that. When it is a big expense, you're good at thinking, okay, well, if it is X amount of money and you split that over months, you can kind of plan for those expenses. But what I wasn't planning for was the wee extra pickup shops that when it was getting to the end of the month and my bank account was empty, it was very easy for me to just be well, I'll just pop that on the credit card because I'll be able to pay that back next month. And that extra wee £40 a week even adds up. Or the exhausted nights after I had been at work all day and none of us could be bothered cooking. I was we'll just grab a Domino's or we'll just go to the pub and grab a bite to eat. We'll pop it on the credit card and we'll pay it back next month. And all those when I looked back, my oldest child, my son, is 10, and it probably really snowballed from when he was born. So I was thinking £15,000 over a 10-year period works out about £4.20 a day. So
wow,
if
less
you're
than a coffee.
Yeah, that's if you're not budgeting for that wee coffee every day for 10 years, that's £15,000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the big expenses. I was good at actually planning for those, but I wasn't planning for the wee unexpected expenses that were creeping up. And then what I would do is I would just balance transfer it. So like when I got to a point with my card, I was like, okay, well, I'll balance transfer that, and then I can split that over 10 months and I'll pay that amount. But my habits weren't changing.
Yeah.
So I was still using another credit card.
Yeah.
And then balance transferring, and that's where it built up.
It's so easy done, isn't it? And I suppose there'll be two camps of people listening to this. Some people thinking, how did that happen? And another camp saying, I'm surprised it's not more. Like, I've got more than that.
Yeah.
I've got myself in different situations. I've got credit card debt, whatever. There'll be people with all different stories. And the big thing around debt, I believe, is the shame around it and the silence and that feeling of, I'm in debt. I need to deal with this by myself. I need to figure it out. And a lot of burying your head in the sand, because how do you get out of that position?
Yeah.
But going back to that night when you decided, right, enough is enough. You bought the personal finance book, and then you did the next logical thing, shared it with the world. Yeah. So you went on TikTok. Tell me the thought behind that, because that's a vulnerable thing. It's vulnerable to even tell your best friend, listen, I'm in debt, I can't go out tonight or whatever. But to share it with the world is a whole other ballgame.
Exactly. And like at that point, before I had got to the point and bought the book and really got to a point where I realised how much debt I was in, I used to sit in my work or at home at night, like listing all my debts, worrying about it, trying to figure out like a plan of how to pay them off. Not once did I ever speak to any of my friends about it. Like, we had been away on a girls' weekend not that long before it, and I was thinking to myself, not of all the things we talked about, you know, like gossip, like things from our teenage years, plans. None of us spoke about money. I couldn't tell you how much what salary my friends are on, how much debt any of us have, how much savings any of us have. And I thought, actually, for years we've never talked about money. Like, it's never been brought up in it. And I just thought, I'm gonna break that stigma, and I'm just gonna start posting about it. I felt so confident about reading that book and finally having a plan in place that the weight that had taken off my shoulders was something that I wanted other people to feel. I thought, if this could help me without even being out the date yet, like I was still in the same situation, but the mental load had completely lessened. Like, I thought, if I share this, it'll also keep me accountable. I thought, you know, that if I share this with the world and I'm showing the steps that I'm taking, I'll be much more accountable to actually stick to it and not be...
Yeah. Absolutely. It's almost like when you're in a hole, someone puts a ladder there. You don't have to climb up it to feel better. You've got the ladder, you know.
Totally that.
One foot in front of the other and follow that. So tell me about the plan.
So the plan at that point was, what I did was I realised all the debt, and I gave myself a plan of paying that off before the remortgage was due. So we had locked in an interest rate that ran out in August 2026, so this year. And I thought that will give me, it was like almost 2.5 years. So the total amount of debt, I just divided that over the 2.5 years, and it worked out around about £500 per month. And I thought, right, well, that's it. I'll pay the £500 per month, and I know that by the date that we have to remortgage, the debt is gone. And then I thought, actually, if I try and increase my income and bring in some extra money, then I could do that a wee bit faster. So I didn't put pressure on myself to increase my income. I just thought, well, that's a wee extra. If I can do it a little bit earlier than the 2.5 years, even better.
Yeah. So you reduced the outgoings and tried to increase the income.
Yeah.
How did you increase the income?
So I set myself a challenge, so at the very start, to try and find a way. I read this meme one time that always stuck with me, that if you could make an extra £27 per day, that would be £10,000 over the year, which is crazy to think. And again, I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself at that point, because my mindset around money was still shifting. Still felt like money would be hard to get. I was like looking for wee part-time jobs I could do at the weekend, evenings. But at the same time, I'm a mum, and it's...
Yeah.
I want to spend the time with the kids. I don't want to be trading my time for money all the time. So instead of like putting the pressure on myself to do £27 per day, I thought, well, how hard could it be to try and make an extra £10 per day? either by saving or earning.
Okay.
So, like, if I was able to like underspend on the shopping. So if I set myself a budget for the shopping and I only spent £90 out of 100, then there's my £10 for the day. I would put that into a wee pot in Monzo. And so that was like a target of about £300 per month.
Right, okay.
But it was no pressure, that was just seen as a bonus because I knew, but even without that, I was still going to have the debt paid off by the time I was. So I feel like that made it a wee bit easier. Like I feel like it's a wee bit harder when it's make or break that you need that money. Whereas that was a bonus, but I was really driven by that goal.
Yeah. So you touched on the shopping there. This is something that I have always loved about following your journey. Tell us how you do your shopping.
So probably at the very start of my journey, I was actually quite embarrassed to say that we shopped at Waitrose. Because especially when you talk about being on a money saving journey and everyone's quick to jump on, well, you should be shopping at Lidl or Aldi.
Yeah.
When actually I don't think that's the case. And when you build your relationship with money, what I've learned is that you should be building a life that you love and then funding what you want to do with it rather than the opposite way around, like trying to save as much money as you can in every area of your life. Like that's a kind of scarcity mindset. So I wanted to shop at Waitrose because I actually prefer Marks and Spencer's, but they don't do home delivery. So what I did was set myself a budget per week because before that we were never working to a budget. We were just like, right, well, we need this for the weekly shopping. So if that was £170 that week, then that's what it was. That's what. Whereas what I did was set a £150 budget per week and try to underspend on that. So I was buying a voucher each week from an app called the Jam Donut app for £120. So it's a voucher for Waitrose. And then what I would do is do my online shopping and stick to that £120 budget, use that voucher to pay for the shopping, which I then got cash back for as well. So it was like sticking to that budget. Then I would have a wee £30 buffer. And then it meant if I did have to pick up anything during the week, I did have that wee margin that I could do that and it wasn't taking me over my budget.
Yeah. So many tips just from that one shift alone. The budget for the weekly shopping, first of all, you're not got the 40 quid here, 40 quid here, 40 quid here, 20 quid in co-op when you just went in for a loaf of bread. It's so easy done. And then online shopping versus going in and picking up everything under the sun that you didn't need in the first place. Buying from a cashback app because then you get the cash back on the spend. Saving the spare from the budget. Into a separate pot and still having that abundant mindset of I am actually eating good food. This doesn't have to mean beans on toast for the rest of my life. So many things just from that one shift.
That, and honestly that was probably the biggest shift in the whole, because we all have to eat, like we all have to buy our weekly groceries. And I think that that's probably an area that most people think that they need to have a variable expense for. They don't know how much they spend on the shopping. But as soon as you control that, it doesn't control your finances so much. And that's such an area where that's overlooked, I would say, in terms of... And I think also, like, if you do end up budgeting so much your weekly shopping, that sometimes where you don't value what you're buying and then you do buy, like, the takeaway or go out for dinner because you're like, oh, we only spent such and such amount at Aldi or whatever. We'll just go out for dinner tonight. It doesn't matter. Like,
or the options are rubbish that you've just bought. You bought a rubbish meal in Aldi, whereas you've got the nicer stuff available that you've just bought in Waitrose. And also in a cheaper supermarket, don't you think you're just like, oh, well, it's only £1. It's only £2. And that is the theme of everything that you're saying. It's the slight edge. We were talking about the book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, which talks about things are easy to do, easy not to do. And every decision that you make, every choice that you choose, you're either on the success curve or you're on the failure curve. You're going one way, but it's those little habits, those tiny decisions, those tiny savings over time, those tiny spends that actually can change the course of your life.
Totally. And I think a big shift for me as well was saving them in a pot where I could see that building too. So, like, I think we're quite quick to overlook little savings or little ways to make cash back because it doesn't feel like much when you're thinking about what that would do to your bank account or what you would spend that on. But when you create a pot and you can see that build up, you're very much motivated and think, how can I put more in it?
Yes.
And it's that whole, the energy of working towards something is more positive than the energy from running away from something. It's the same direction. It's just a very different energy.
Yeah. And that's a massive part of it. And that mindset behind it, you're saving money instead of trying to get out of debt. And honestly, when I first started following your journey, I did see what you were doing and think, that looks like a faff. So many, like £1 here and £1 there. And then you've recommended various different apps, cashback apps, and ones that round up, your nearest pennies, the nearest pound,
the roundups,
things like that. But it all works.
I think, though, the biggest thing is probably having a specific goal.
Yes.
If you're just doing it for the sake of having roundups and having a bit of extra money, it can be so easy to be like, easy to do, easy not to do your habits. But if you have something specific, like I wanted to have, like in the whole journey of getting debt free, I had a goal in mind to build an emergency savings fund so that if anything came up, I didn't have to go back into debt to pay for it. So if anything came up with the car or washing machine or something like that, I didn't have to take out credit. I would be able to use my own savings for that. So I think having that goal, it was the same with my overdraft. I was stuck in my overdraft for 15 years. And now that I'm saying that, like stuck in my overdraft, I wasn't stuck in my overdraft. I was mentally stuck in my overdraft because in my mind, the thought of losing money from my salary to pay off something felt like money for nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas what I did was set up a pot in Monzo and set the goal to £2,000, which was double my overdraft. So everything I was doing, all those cashbacks, all the savings was going into that goal to hit £2,000. And as soon as I hit that, I paid off my overdraft, clicked the button, completely cancelled it, and I had my own £1,000 overdraft. So it didn't feel like I was just giving that money away. It was like such a feeling of power. Like I was so empowered by the fact that I was able to do that, and suddenly I had trained myself. Right, well, if you can do that, you can do it 10 times over. You can make a £10,000 emergency savings.
Yeah, and it started with a goal, and that's the key. Because so many people who are struggling with debt, I know, they don't have a goal because it's like, how can I reach that goal? How can I possibly get myself out of this situation when what is going out, just it comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out. And how do they get out of that cycle? But you're suggesting building a savings fund while they're getting out of debt so that they don't continue that cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And also feel that sense of raising your income. Because I think you could do it without, you could budget and manage your own salary. But I think it's harder to do than finding ways to increase your income, because the margin is slightly bigger that you're working with. If you can find ways to lower your outgoings and increase your income, things don't feel as tight as when you're just managing your main, because before that, I was always just managing the budget, what was coming in. But there's a million ways out there to make £1 million.
So let's talk about some of them.
So from that book, from How to Fund the Life You Want, I was learning a lot about investing. And one of the biggest things for me was it taught me how to use your money to make more money. And that was a totally new concept to me. I thought investing was what you hear about, like day trading, the Forex stuff.
Yeah, guys on Wall Street,
gambling,
middle-aged men on the golf course. It's
like reading the Financial Times, reading stock market charts. Totally not what I wanted to do. Couldn't think of anything worse. And then I read that book and I was like, oh, that's not what long-term investing is. And actually, it's very predictable. It's very predictable if you know the right calculation to do. Like once you do that, you can then pay it into your investment portfolio like you would your council tax. But it's something that's for future you, and you're getting pretty predictable returns based on historic data. So once I started learning that, I realised that there's a pathway to become a millionaire in your lifetime as an average. as an average working mum of two,
Yeah.
that was a whole new pathway to me. So then I started thinking, right, well, I could start to monetize social media, or I was doing things like overtime at my work. Not to the point where I was, like trying, like, it was overkill or anything like that. I wanted to make sure that I still had a balance, but things like cashback, overtime, those were all kind of what I would say is entry-level ways to increase your income, like any little ways like that. But then social media opened up to me, and...
Well, you open social media up to yourself. There are people going through this same journey who would not be brave enough to put themselves on social media. And that moment of courage is so key. And it's not just one moment of courage. It's though every single day you show up on your Instagram and your TikTok and you educate people and you teach people that you deserve every penny that you get. Like, it didn't open up to you. You opened it.
Do you know what I feel really lucky about is that other women were opening up, not in terms of finances, but about how to use social media to monetize.
Yes.
So I think for a long time, social media influencers have built platforms, made lots of money, but never really taught anyone how to do it. And all of a sudden, over the last few years, I think there's been a big shift in women empowering women and showing them ways to do it. And I was luckily following some really amazing creators that were showing you, and they were trying to say to you, if you have an inkling to share something or help someone in some way, then share it on social media, because there's ways that you can monetize it. And at that point, I'm obviously looking for ways to monetize, like to increase my income. So I thought, right, okay, well, we'll try this. If this helps people and I can find a way to monetize that, then that's a double whammy for me. And so I started doing things like my goal was to hit 10,000 followers on TikTok, because I knew you could monetize through video views. And then I realised it was pennies. It was like,
right,
It's not, I mean, it can be quite lucrative in some ways, but it's very time consuming, and for what you earn, it wasn't great. So that was fine, but also realised that you can monetize through digital products. So I follow an amazing Canadian creator. She's called Chelsea Pursuits. So she talks a lot about personal finance. She was selling a budget planner for like $9, and she was making tens of thousands per month. And I thought, well, I had come across this method called the 50-30-20 method. Which is basically just a framework. And I think some people get so caught up in it and they say, oh, that's not possible. And it's basically just trying to keep your outgoings, your fixed outgoings, the boring bills in my mind, to under 50% of what the household income is. Roughly 30% to guilt-free spending money on whatever you want to. And then 20% for future use, so like savings and investments. And that whole framework for me really helped me to see a way that I could try and balance our bills, spending money that wasn't using up our whole income, and also building wealth for the future for us as a family. So I thought I was going to the library on my days off and like creating this wee budget planner for me. Amazing. And then I thought, if this helps me, I'll just sell that and see. So started selling that. So that was another way to monetize. And then I also learned about affiliate marketing. So sharing brands that you're organically using. So like the jam donut. I remember being in a cafe one day and I was just sitting. I actually had a really bad headache that day. I can really, really vividly remember it. And I thought, right, how do I do this? I'm trying to figure it all out. And I made a wee link tree in my bio and I put this jam donut link in and I thought, right, hopefully someone will use this. And on the first day, I think there was 8 people used my link. I could not believe that. I was totally blown away because at that point it was like £8 a referral. So that was like £64 in a day.
Wow.
So suddenly I was like, oh, right, okay, people are listening to me. They're taking my advice. They want to use the things I'm talking about.
And just to confirm, this is an affiliate link that anyone can get.
It was a generic refer a friend. Like I hadn't approached the brand or anything like that. I was literally using that app. And actually, up until this point, so I'm almost 2 years down the line of doing social media. I've only ever used refer a friend links, and over that time, I've made about £20,000.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Which is crazy. Like that for me, that's they're generic refer a friend links. They were and that's scratching the surface of what you can make on social media. That is scratching the surface. You can build partnership links, brand deals, and more so now I'm looking into like education platforms.
Yeah.
So like all this stuff that I've learned over the past 2 years has really opened my eyes to financial education, and I'm so passionate about trying to empower other women, especially, to take control of their finances and pull themselves out of that paycheck cycle, because I think we're so ingrained in society to just stay in this wee cycle of you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. But there's once you are financially literate, you find a way to take yourself right out of that, that little cycle.
Yeah.
And you feel so much more empowered to make big decisions.
Yes. And you know what I've loved about watching your journey is that you shared when you got out of debt, which was when? Just the tail end of last year?
Yeah, just before Christmas, December.
Just before Christmas. So we're now in March, and you shared publicly on your social media. Tell me what you earned in February through social media.
Like £9,000 in February.
What? It's not far off the original debt number.
No, I think that's another thing. That's another part of all of this, is that it's not just about the finances. I think it's a total combination of mindset, manifesting this, and the finances, because it was so I started this, I bought the book on the 19th of February 2 years ago, and almost to the date, my net worth between my investments and my savings was £15,000. To almost exactly to the date 2 years later, it was like a complete 180 of being £15,000 in debt to £15,000 in the positive.
Wow.
And I think that if I hadn't cleared the way, like see if that debt hadn't gone in December, I don't think I would have mentally cleared the way to let that amount of money come in. It was as if I had let go of that self-image of that person that was in debt,
that identity of being the person who's in debt,
to then like open the floodgates to be like, right, I'm ready for all my money now. And it just happened to be that a few posts in January went viral, brought in so much from affiliate links, and it paid out over January and February that like my whole year goal of having a 10k emergency savings fund was done.
Absolutely inspiring. And there's so many points to talk about there. Firstly, the mindset. Also, you spoke about manifestation, and you said mindset, manifestation, and the actual finances themselves. The manifestation is a massive part of it, I believe, but also you did the work. You've become obsessed with this for the last 2 years of your life. And I think for someone who is in that position and that debt is feeling heavy, would you say there has to be a period where you just have to become obsessed with it?
Yeah, I do. I think if you're not, you'll find it very hard. And I think you would go through those peaks and troughs, and you'll become detached from it if, in a way that like you could go back to old habits and not believe in yourself so much.
Yeah.
Where when you get really obsessed with it, you are on top of your mindset. Like I read that book, and I was following like financial creators at the same time, but also I was working on my mindset every day.
Yeah.
So one of the most amazing audiobooks I came across was Bob Proctor, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. And everything that he was saying was to do with your mindset around money and your self-belief. And I was tapping into that every day on my drive to work, on my drive home. If I was out for walks, I was like physically like vibrating basically with like this whole identity shift from the mindset work that I was doing. Not just the numbers.
Interesting question. Do you think that mindset work would be as effective if you weren't doing the actual work?
No.
It's almost like pillars, isn't it? Pillars of the system that's going to get you from where you are to where you want to be.
Because I was doing a lot of the mindset work previous to that.
Yeah.
So I had probably started delving into personal development in lockdown, like a lot of people probably did. But I didn't really have a lot to apply it to.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I did. It was like the penny dropped. Like everything, the jigsaw pieces were coming together. It was like one didn't work well without the other. And so that book and doing the audio book work, it was emboldening me. Do you know, like it was strengthening the muscles.
And it's almost like the mindset work is bolstered, to use your term, by the activity that you're doing, because it's all very well saying I attract money to me easily and freely, but if you're looking at your bank account and it's minus 15,000 and you're not doing anything to change it, it's that voice just gets louder. No, you're not. No, you're not. I've seen your bank account. No, you're not.
Exactly.
But when you're on that ladder and you're climbing out of it, yes, we are. We're making moves. We're doing the things.
That's exactly it. Like, I think you can't be delusional to the point that you just think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people use like the law of assumption, you know, and manifestation of this is going to happen and I'll just assume this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But the only way that your self-identity changes is doing that, is giving yourself evidence. So every time you're giving yourself evidence, like it didn't start as a big, huge thing that I did. I remember one of the biggest ones I ever had was not using my credit card one month. It wasn't that I had suddenly got, you know, made an extra £1,000 one month. It was that small win for me was I didn't, when things got hard at the end of the month, and I could have so easily just went on a Friday night and got like a wee Tesco shop of snacks for us, even though I didn't have the money. I didn't go and use the credit card, and that was the win. And all of a sudden, my brain was like, oh, she's serious about this.
You did it.
The evidence was building. We're no longer that person that does that.
Yeah.
And the more little wins like that were building up, my whole self-image was changing. We're not that person anymore that does that. We're the person that builds up our savings and investments to have choices in life.
Yeah. With every penny that goes in the actual bank, you've got a penny going in your mindset bank as well, just building it up. Brick by brick.
Yeah, exactly. And they totally marry up.
Yeah.
You definitely can't have one without the other.
Yeah. A lot of money mindset books that I've read talk about scarcity versus abundance and thinking abundantly and avoiding the use of language that implies that you don't have things. So obviously the law of attraction talks about speaking about what you want and what you are looking for. So for example, I can't afford that, or I don't want to be poor versus I am wealthy.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that? Because obviously your awareness of the mindset stuff is improving, and at the same time you're having to say, I actually can't afford that, more and more and more. How did you navigate that balance?
So I think luckily for me, because I was so public on social media, I found that much easier to do than what probably someone might do. You know, if you're working on it from a place where you maybe do feel shame and you're working through that, it can be really hard to say, I can't afford it or I can't do that. That was another thing that probably got me in a lot of debt, was that when the girls ever wanted to do something, it was a say yes no matter what, because if I couldn't afford it, I'd stick it on a credit card and think to myself, they obviously don't want to go if they're not coming, because anyone could just stick it on a credit card. Where now all of a sudden, if I didn't have the money, I couldn't afford it. And what I started to say was, I'm really working on my finances just now.
I love that.
Because it didn't mean I was in debt.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was really public about it, but I think for anyone, you could use that, because we all have our own life goals, and you could be working on your finances because you want to take a few months off work, or you're working towards IVF, or something so personal to you that you don't have to tell anyone what it is. You can just say, I'm really focusing on my finances just now.
Yeah.
That's where your focus is, and that's where your priorities are. And real friends understand that.
Absolutely. And I do think it's hard for people who have never been in debt to understand that heaviness that comes with that.
Yeah.
But you living that out loud and sharing that with the world, it gave you access to that ability to just say no and just, you know, show people that you are focusing on your finances right now. What would you say to people who are trying to do this in the dark? You mentioned the shame there. We know there's nothing to be ashamed about. The cost of living is increasing. I think people with debt are far more than we would even imagine. So many people have debt and they're really struggling with it, and it can really affect your mental health. It can affect your physical health. What would you say to someone who is trying to do that in secret?
So I would say be very, very careful of any kind of content you are consuming in terms of social media. I think social media's got a huge part to play in probably a lot of people getting into debt, because we're constantly watching people who are living beyond their means.
All the hauls. Don't get me started on the hauls.
Like, it's so trendy, and obviously, like, when you have had a hard week at work and you're like, oh, I'll just buy this to pick me up, or it's so easy. Obviously, when you're in TikTok shop, you can literally just click and you're buying this, buying that.
Done.
And things like Temu, Shein, everything's so cheap, so you're just doing these big hauls or whatever. But I think that's not normal.
Yes.
That's been so normalised, and that's not normal. And I was very conscious all of a sudden of all of that content I was consuming, because that's a highlight reel. And what I've learned from sharing this is that a lot of those content creators that I was following felt like they were only going to be successful on social media by showing this kind of extravagant life, or taking their kids out every weekend to like big adventure soft play areas or farm parks, and spending a fortune every single weekend. So then everyone else feels like that's what if you're going to have happy kids, that's what you should be doing. And that's not. Like, that's absolutely not. You can have happy kids and you can be in the house. You can go to the library. You can have a wee picnic in the house. You don't have to have that big. So I think following creators that show you normal life and under consuming, and focusing on glowing up your finances instead of glowing up every aspect of your life, like your car, your house, home decor, like clothes hauls, makeup hauls. Even the other day I was walking through Silverburn and I noticed that they're opening a big Sephora.
Yep.
So it's right along from the new H Beauty.
Yep.
And they've shut, I'm sure it's Waterstones.
That
they've closed to open the Sephora. And I think that's a total visual representation of where we place value, is we spend so much money on how we look.
Yeah.
Instead of how we feel, like what, like how it feels inside your brain, rather than how your life looks to other people who don't care. Like, really, people aren't interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think social media has got a lot to answer for there, because you can't see a bank account. It's not sexy on social media to have a good pension.
Yeah.
Because what do you have to show for it? And these, when we spoke about hauls and you were saying glowing up different areas of your life, your car, your house and all that, keeping up with the Joneses. But it's even going back to the Lidl and the Aldi, it's the cheap things that are actually, I think, the most dangerous, like the B&M hauls and the Home Bargains hauls. 40 quid on Easter bunnies and eggs to hang from your trees and spring doormats. Why are we decorating our house every season?
Yeah, that makes me ill now. Whereas when I look back like 2-3 years ago, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was creating the whole Easter table for like family to come over.
Easter baskets.
What happened
Easter
to an egg?
We're getting a basket full of stuff for the kids in the morning.
And it just makes you feel horrible.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, you've overspent. The kids aren't even interested. They've had a couple of eggs. They're sitting in front of the TV like, that's them. They've had their morning. You're then looking at your credit card being like, oh, did I really spend £70 on that? Like, I went in for a couple of bits and I've spent £70, and it's all fleeting. It's all fleeting, because then you're on the next thing, aren't you? Like, it's Easter one, and then it's Valentine's Day all of a sudden. Like, that's huge. And you're constantly keeping up with the next thing. And it's all over consumption. I think it takes away from you being really intentional about what you want your life to look like, and figuring out how much would that cost, because actually you could probably build your dream life. I think there's a lot of women who maybe want to work part-time for a better work-life balance and think they can't afford it. But it's because they've built what they think is a lifestyle that they have to keep up with.
Yeah.
When actually, if they knew their numbers, then they could probably find a way to reduce their hours and have less, but feel more.
Feel wealthier.
Yeah. Feel like they have a richer life because they have a 3-day working week.
Yeah.
But they're not taking the kids out every weekend and feeling like they have to spend all that money, or feeling like they have to dress them in the best of clothes all the time for every occasion, like using things like Vinted.
Yeah.
And buying and selling things, because it means that you get to spend more time with them and you're not working to pay the high finance car, like these weekends away and all that. You think that you can't do those things, when actually if you were to sit and plan, what does your ideal year look like? What does your ideal week look like? What would you love if money wasn't an issue? What would you want it to look like? And I think actually for a lot of people, it's not about the big, flashy things.
Yeah.
It's about getting up in the morning and having a wee slow morning with your family while they're still young.
Yeah.
Or going for that afternoon walk and grabbing a cuppa and going and sitting in a wee bookshop while the wee one's at nursery or something like that.
Those lovely moments.
Mm-hmm.
And the freedom in your head to be able to enjoy them.
And not be constantly writing out your wee lists of, right, okay, my Virgin credit card is X amount and this card's that, and how am I going to... It's like the more you work on your finances and your mindset, the quieter your brain is.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely priceless.
Peace.
It's peace.
Is that what you feel now?
I feel like I thought I would feel more peace when I paid off the debt. I felt more peace when I knew the plan, which was way before I paid off the debt. I felt much more peace then, because even when I had £10,000, £8,000, £7,000, at that point, it didn't even matter to me, because, like you say, I had that ladder.
Yeah.
I was just climbing the ladder. I was finding ways to enjoy it as I went. So I was like, how much fun can I have doing this, rather than like, oh my God, I've still got £4,000. I saw a video that came up the other day on my social media. Someone must have liked it and it popped back up. And I was talking about how I'm almost debt free. And I was thinking, oh, how much was it? And I said £4,000. I'm like, that's still a lot. But in my head at that point, I had gone from 15 down to 4. It was like, oh, I mean, this is going to be gone in no time. So it was like, how can I find ways to enjoy this rather than see it as a chore? And now I feel so much peace, but also so much excitement, because I feel like if I can do that, I feel like, what's next? Like, how much can I grow this?
So what is next? What's the goal?
So right now I'm a careers advisor, and I feel very conflicted, because I think that financial education in schools isn't good enough. And I find that really hard when I'm sitting talking to young people and advising them about careers, and there's not that financial education conversation happening. So I've taken the decision to hand my notice into work.
How exciting! Congratulations!
Which wasn't, I think I had plans to do that maybe at some time in the future, but I'm just now at a point where I've got my little emergency savings fund, and I want to build a business that helps other women who feel stuck with money and take them through a framework that makes them feel exactly how I felt, like there's help there and there's guidance. And yeah, I think along the way, I'd love to try and work with education as well for secondary school pupils. Yeah, and just find a way to work with maybe the banks. I think maybe Young Enterprise Scotland in some way. I don't think there's enough around entrepreneurship and finance. And I think there's a whole load of kids at high school who are totally disconnected from education, but they are being, that saying, you can't judge a goldfish for its ability to climb a wall.
Yeah.
Because it'll spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. I think there's a whole load of kids that are being treated that way, that have so much potential in them, that the school system just wasn't for them, but entrepreneurship and finance together, that kind of knowledge could light something so amazing in them, that we really need to try and tap into, I think.
I'm actually welling up here because it's so needed and it's going to change so many lives. And there's just nothing out there for people who want to be an entrepreneur, people who want to start their own business. There's very little financial education, and kids who are not academic, maybe there's, people will help them go into trades and things like that. But there's such an opportunity for creativity and changing their life through what they love, which is exactly what you've done in the space of 2 years.
Yeah, and I would never have saw myself as an entrepreneur. But entrepreneur isn't like this big, crazy, like when you're watching Dragon's Den or The Apprentice and things like that, you think, oh, you need to come up with this big, a product or whatever. Like that was never something I thought of. But all of a sudden, I think when you use your own story, and a lot of these kids that are disconnected from school have a story and have so much passion to want to help other people or do something, they just don't have the mindset. Like they're maybe coming from families that've never done mindset work or anything like that. I think if you can really, like implant a wee seed in their mind, they've got so much potential to change the world. And I think we really need to help them to do that.
Absolutely. Amy, this has been such a powerful conversation. And I know that there's someone listening to this thinking, oh my God, if the moment of clarity and the moment of peace was when she had the plan, then all I need to do is get myself a plan and then I'm going to feel so much lighter. And that's just around the corner. That doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's just a period of committing to this, getting through it, and then you can turn your life around in the process. And actually, your debt has been your greatest gift.
Yeah, and it totally has. I think when you are at a point where you think, I never want to feel this way again, when you get that low in something, it can be like an elastic band that totally pulls you back and propels you into something so amazing if you let it. And if you really work on changing it, it's the person you become along the way and what you've already got inside of you that you bring, that it draws out, can totally change your life.
Absolutely. So if I was to ask you for 3 practical tips to leave this with, what would they be?
Number 1 is tap into financial education. Like really, it probably sounds boring, but I mean like 10 pages a day. 10 pages a day, listen to an audiobook, just tap into financial education, because it's all well and good like doing a budget, but it probably feels boring doing a budget. But when you realise why you're doing it and what it's actually going to do for you, that's when things change. I would say don't just rely on having one bank account. I think that's such a huge mistake that a lot of people make, is that they just have their one bank account and see their full income going in there and think that that's what they've got, when actually if you can maybe keep your bills, like your main essential spending, in your main bank account and then have a secondary account, so I use like Monzo, you can then transfer your spending money, like your fun money for the month, into that account, and then that's all you've got. And you can clearly see it, and you can only say yes to the things that you can spend that money on. And then the third one, I would say use cashback.
Yeah.
Like set yourself a goal and find ways to increase your income that are fun, that you enjoy doing, because you're going to train yourself that there's to look for ways, to look for opportunities to increase your income, rather than feeling like you're stretching yourself thinly. Because a lot of people will come to me and say, well, that's really good. Yes, I'd love to build savings, but I'm already like stretched so thinly on what we're already earning. So find fun ways to try and increase your income and use that to build your emergency savings. I think that's a good starting point.
Perfect starting point. And the thing I love about those pieces of advice is they're all completely accessible. Cashback is a free app to download.
Yep.
Websites are free. Those affiliate links that you can make money from are free.
Yep.
All of this is available to you. Social media is free.
Yep.
Sharing your story is free. Giving advice, reading more about finance is all free. It's accessible, and it just takes that leap of courage, which is what you started with, and now what you're inspiring so many other people to start with too.
Hopefully.
And my wish for this podcast is that it gives people hope.
Yeah.
And I really believe that's what you're doing every day. So
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you for having me on, because it's something I've listened to since lockdown. So I feel really like this is such a full circle moment to be on as a guest.
How funny. When you told me that, I thought, oh my goodness, that's so funny.
Yeah, I've honestly been so inspired by the women that you've had on here and listening to them, and I never had a context to use it in. So that was definitely already there. I just had to pull it out. So thank you.
And now you do. Now you're on it, telling us all how to deal with our finances. Tell us how to follow you if we want to follow your journey on social.
So if you want to follow along, I am on Instagram and TikTok, and my name is at Amy Learns to Save.
Okay, and people can buy your budget planner on there too?
Yep, so there's a link in both of the bios, and I'm working on a guide to increase your income. So I'm working on a guide to show you all the ways that you can increase your income, aiming for £10 extra per day, so £300 over the month.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that in the show notes we've got all the links to the books and the websites and the people, the social creators that you recommended as well.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you soon.